everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing Live Show number 178. With me is Mr. Tim Peter, which I hope his audio is back to live and happiness. No! I hear Stuart, though.
Hey, guys.
Hey, and Mr. Stuart Peter with Fuel Travel. Tim is doing his mime impression today. He's...
Nice.
Yeah, but no audio. No audio from Mr. Tim.
I sound like I'm echoing as well. You hearing that?
It might be me. Let me turn my volume down a little bit. I'm yelling.
Okay.
Which is typical. Shock jock. That's what I am. I'm shock jock. Although if I keep letting my hair grow, nope, still not yet. If I keep letting my hair grow, I'm going to put it into a little man bun on the top and turn into a barista. I think that's my new chosen occupation for 2019. I'm just going to put a man bun on, go barista.
That's the one thing I've wondered about you. I think the only thing you could improve on is getting a man bun. So
a man bun, yeah. I think a man bun, yeah. Well, Tim's been working on it too, so it's a bit of a slow thing to it. But damn it, Tim, where's your damn audio? God dang it!
Did you try turning it off and on again, Tim? That usually fixes the problem.
No, still there's not
now.
Yay!
Now.
Yay! Happy New Year, Mr. Tim.
Howdy, howdy. Happy New Year, everybody. It helps if you turn on the phantom power to the microphone.
Damn that phantom power.
That's right.
Ooh, phantom power.
Hey, speaking of just something for fun to it, I'm very excited about the upcoming Avengers movie. I want to see what happens to whether they created a duality universe or whether quantum foam actually works. You know, entanglement. Is it a real thing or not?
I will tell you, I've wanted to write a story for years just based on the phrase "spooky action at a distance," which is a property of quantum mechanics. They talk about spooky action at a distance. And I always thought that'd be the great title for like a Ray Bradbury short story or something like that. So
that's neat.
You know,
but that's all I got. That's as far as I ever got with that. Is I know Ray Bradbury. I know the title. I got nothing else.
That here we have hosts that are already talking about quantum entanglement. That gives you, ladies and gentlemen, the caliber that is on this show.
Yes,
we know how to say the word quantum entanglement.
And when do you hear how it will influence your ADR and RevPAR in 2025?
That's right.
Probably about equally as much as blockchain will.
Exactly.
No. I want to
blockchain, 5G. Robert, hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry, Robert. You need to move your microphone away from where you exhale because you sound like Darth Vader's evil twin.
Thank you.
We're in that movie. Okay, so this time I'm going to tie quantum entanglement. The effects of this over here have a direct action over here at the same momentous time. It is occurring duality that, when the Dow goes down, business does get affected. If a butterfly flaps its wings, there is a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Wow.
You're conflating quantum theory and chaos theory there, I think, a little bit.
I'm pushing it all into one big pile calling it blockchain.
Okay. So are we talking about a new hotel concept, Schrodinger's hotel?
That's right. It's both occupied and unoccupied simultaneously.
You may or may not have a reservation. You may or may not have a reservation at the same time.
Exactly. Depending on who you book through.
Yeah, until you do the night audit, it is both occupied and unoccupied simultaneously.
Do you have a room or don't you have a room? That's the OTA struggle. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. A happy New Year to everyone. Our first show out of 2019.
Hey, can I share something with you? You brought up the Avengers movie and getting excited about that. If you start Infinity War at exactly 9:45 and 54 seconds, then the snap occurs exactly at midnight. So that's what me and my kid. Yeah, so that's what my two sons and I did to see in the new year. We enjoyed watching, spoiler alert, all of Marvel's superheroes dying at midnight. It was great.
They didn't die. They went to an alternate parallel universe, just like...
They dusted. Sorry, they dusted.
I would have lined it up. This is just my opinion, but I would have lined it up with Nick Fury going "mother" and then disappearing. That would be the perfect end to 2018.
Wow,
just dust the whole thing.
Anyway, gentlemen, Robert, thank you again for an excellently well curated list. A little, albeit late to the gate, so I only read a couple of the articles to start out. One of which I was hoping we could
that's
hit, but
my
again,
excuse too.
Yes, that's the one I use every week, by the way, just for those who may not know.
I read them. I only understood like 3 of them, but I did read them.
I didn't know if Robert, you had actually read Kalibri Labs' 2019 hotel industry performance forecast.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. But should I give you a quick update of 2018's actual performance recap?
That'd be great.
STR's weekly report came out. Okay, so these are the Robert Cole numbers. Since 2006, I have taken on a weekly basis every STR report. Now, not daily. I probably should have started daily, but I didn't do that. So, and I'm not going back.
I'm questioning the data already. I'm questioning the authenticity of the data already.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've gone through. I have little check figures to make sure. Every once in a while, I'd make a little typo here. You don't do that. So, anyway, actually, for the trivia people, week 52 is always a great one because you have but in 2009 they had basically had the worst week of occupancy in the history of the hotel industry, which was 33.8 well, maybe not in history, but since records were kept, I'm not sure. 33.8% occupancy in 2009. This year, we were all the way up to 50.9. Wow. Now, that was down from last year, which was 51.6. But anyway, overall for the year, I think are the interesting ones. What do we have? Year-over-year occupancy, about 0.3% increase in overall occupancy this year versus last year, which is not a great, huge number. So the year ended up at 66, a little bit over 66.5%, and last year it was 66 1/3%, right? So marginal increase. ADR is what pushed the increase. They were ADR was up a whopping just under 2.5%, right? Which it was 128.45, up from 125.37. So again, not the strongest figure in the world,
especially when inflation is hovering around 2%.
Yes, exactly. So that puts RevPAR overall up at about 2.79% or about 2.8%. So RevPAR overall in real dollars up about $2.33 per available room, which is not a huge number to contend with. But if you look back at the quarterly figures, not anything to get excited about in terms of trends, because the third quarter was bad. It was actually negative year-over-year for occupancy. So it came back. Fourth quarter was a little bit stronger, was up 0.5 point, but not. First quarter basically was up a little bit less than 0.5 point in occupancy. Second quarter was up 2/3% in occupancy. Third quarter was down 1/3%. And the fourth quarter was up just a little bit over 0.5%. So
what's that give us for an annual number, Robert? Sorry.
The annual number is about up a third of a percent, let's say.
So essentially flat. I mean,
essentially flat. So it wasn't like, here's some big disruptive event. It's just a big meh. And then the same.
Are you just tracking North America?
That's just U.S. Actually,
US,
just U.S.
Okay.
Just U.S. Basically, just to piss you off, Stuart.
Basically, well,
I live in the U.S. That's fine. Most of my clients are in the U.S. That's good.
There you go.
Yep. So the numbers, quite honestly, sorry, STR guys, their international numbers aren't that great.
Right.
City by city, they're okay, but overall not.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, not so good. So in the U.S., pretty good. And STR, I mean, you mentioned Kalibri. Overall has much better coverage overall than Kalibri. Kalibri has a lot of the major chains, but not necessarily the breadth that STR has across all the groups.
Which is funny because the Kalibri Labs data suggests things will be a lot stronger than what the actuals have been showing, which I think is interesting / curious.
Yeah.
Well, and they're looking mainly at the big brands, right? So does that mean that they done a better job this year than independents or smaller chains? I don't know.
I would say probably. I mean, generally well, I don't know. STR's numbers have shown that independents have done really pretty well, but STR also breaks out some of their independent numbers a little
I think
interestingly, right?
I think there's the likely cause of that is that the chains have better representation both in the STR data and in the Kalibri Labs data. In terms of geographic coverage, right? If I'm a chain, I've got properties everywhere. If I'm an independent, who's participating in STR, I tend to be in major markets, right?
True.
Major markets, some secondary markets, and the like, which are the ones that are getting most impacted by, increased inventory in the marketplace and the like. So I think it's likely an indicator that major markets are feeling the pain a little bit more than secondary, tertiary markets are. And of course, the major brands aren't going to have that same problem because of their geographic distribution.
Right. So do people look at, because I'm not big on this side of the data. My data's all on the kind of individual property level with our clients. But do people look at this kind of data trending against what's happening in terms of inventory availability, not occupancy, but the fact that new properties being built or some alternative accommodation, stuff like that?
They should be. I can tell you with my clients, we certainly do. I mean, we try to forecast what is both the likely demand into the market, using things like travel clicks data and the like, as well as what's going on from the standpoint of inventory, so we can get a sense of what should our fair share be, right? We pay very close attention to our share of business into the market,
right?
Because that's often and Stuart, you deal with the same thing, right? When you're an independent property, your ability to drive demand into the market, and let's be fair, when you're any kind of property, your ability to drive demand into the market is somewhat limited.
Yeah.
What is very important is how much of the business that is coming into the market are you capturing, and how much are you capturing of local business, right? So we pay very close attention to what's happening from an inventory perspective, because that has a tremendous effect on what happens from a share perspective.
Yeah, makes sense.
Supply is pretty much, well, if you look at actually, if Jan Freitag from STR, I'm a huge fan of. He always generally once a month or so, he puts his kind of Freitag 5 things of things to really look at, and he's basically kind of answers a few questions that folks may have here and there, but the overall demand change for 2018. Now he did year to date through November, is up like 28 million rooms in real numbers. And in 2017, year to date, it was up 26 million rooms. 2016, it was only 16 million rooms. The year before that, was 27 million rooms. So, demand is good.
Demand is still fairly strong.
And they've got a pretty good handle on what's happening with supply. And so they are kind of looking at it going, you know what? That's okay. But then he'll also break some things down very interestingly. And actually, he did note in November, all of a sudden there was a big supply jump for rooms in construction, jumped up to like plus 7.8% for, I'm not exactly sure what the aberration was. Suddenly in November, when it was just kind of, flat or not doing much at all for the rest of the year, but everything started to get built.
Yeah, I would expect some of that. Now, this is pipeline data, so it's not really sure what's going on there. So I would expect that has something to do with people's access to financing, but I'm not 100% sure. Right.
Yeah, so or they're squeezing the stuff in this year, or whatever the case.
Yeah, right.
We got the thing started this year for whatever reasons, but but he also breaks some things down by the monthly changes by class, and you start looking at. I'm trying to think. Did he say the occupancy? Not exactly sure if this is for a particular month or maybe the month of November. He didn't really put if it was.
He says November. I'm looking at the data.
Well, for number 2 for the class data.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, okay. It's still November. So, looks at RevPAR for luxury was up 3.8%, which is great, and economy was up 3.8%, which is pretty good. Mid-scale 2.8%, and what did those three have in common? They all had occupancy growth. Right, and ADR was actually pushed up 2.7% on the luxury end, but everything else in the middle, the upper upscale, upper mid-scale, which is where all these new hotel brands are, right? For all the new stuff that all the big brands are doing. Upper upscale occupancy down 1.5%, upscale down 1.4%, upper mid-scale down 0.4%. None of the ADR increases were over 1%. And you start looking at that and you go, oh, it's at the top. It's at kind of at the bottom. So those are things to be, certainly consider. And some of that occupancy could be certainly driven by increased supply growth in those sectors too.
And I also want to talk about, I want to go back to the Kalibri Labs numbers for a second, because they make a really good point. There's clearly some interesting things with their methodology and the like. But they raise a couple of really key points that I think are worth being aware, and really, for people who watch the show, something you should think about in 2019. They talked about how many rooms are now being booked online, and they don't really unpack why that's not necessarily a good thing, right? And I'm a digital guy. I've spent my entire career in digital. At the same time, we have to recognize two things that happen with regard to digital that we need to focus on as we go forward. One is that obviously when we talk about digital, there's tremendous price transparency, right? When we talk about, particularly as opposed to walk-in or as opposed to people on the phone, right? Now, clearly people who walk in, and especially people on the phone, have access to the pricing data as well. But it used to be somebody walked into your property, you gave them a rate and they took it or they didn't. There wasn't a lot of, let me pull out my phone and look and see what other prices are around. Now, most people have already worked that out before they ever drive into your parking lot or pick up the phone and call you. So they know what the right price is, right? The right price. They know what the market rate is in your market. So digital obviously has created this situation where it's tougher to push rate, particularly if your competitors are all doing some things like discounting like crazy. The second thing, and this was something we saw all the time, and I still see all the time with luxury product and upper upscale property product, is your ability to upsell is so much better when you're talking to a voice agent. A trained voice agent who knows what they're doing. Oh yeah. So you can actually absolutely sell up to a higher rated room, a higher rated room category, etc., in a way that I still think digital lags, and it's something that we need to be thinking about. How do we do upsell, not during the transaction, because the first thing you want to do is get the reservation, but post-transaction, right? How do you entice people to upsell to a corner room, upsell to a suite, upsell to, some other amenity or some other benefit that you can offer?
Add on breakfast.
Right, add on breakfast, add on dinner, add on show, add on whatever, where you can generate more revenue from that reservation. And this is a common problem. This is a funny thing. This is a common problem in digital across all industries is, if you look at average cart value for any online store versus any regular retailer, the average cart value is always lower because people don't pick things up as they're standing in line at the checkout the way that they do when they're in a retail outlet. And the same is true in hospitality. I look at the rate, I book the rate, and upselling becomes something we have to be more deliberate about and think about what are our upselling plans for guests who have already made that reservation, because that absolutely is a thing we're going to see more of, and it's absolutely going to depress rate if we don't take action to actually think about how we upsell folks after the transaction's made.
Going too bad Valen isn't on, because she could tell.
I was going to say, well, we could do a commercial. We could do a commercial right now for Norman.
The Kalibri Lab, other ones too. I mean, information in a positive way. I saw some negatives in that, and again, it goes to the methodology of the data collection. Their one chart, and I can share the screen, but I don't want to take away from it. And they're in their article of total U.S. change in rooms booked per day. It is apparent from their 15 to 19. For those who can't see the graphic. The link is in the chat room if you want to click open it for it.
Right.
The real victim is the property direct. And I find that to be very skewed, obviously, for a pair of reasons. Brands have been shooting standalone sites and so forth out of their market strategy for this entire duration of time. So how can you go over and say, you know, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain when you killed all of them? You know, so
hold on.
Couple things there, though.
Yeah, when they're talking property direct, they're mainly talking walk-in and phone, and in many cases, in the way Kalibri Labs does their data, they're mainly talking walk-in and phone, and they are talking about the fact that, you know, phone. One of the things we have to think about specifically with regard to that is the fact that, you know, a lot of properties are opting for call gating.
Right. Well, I'll go with that to a certain point, other than the fact that brand is also mitigating that off of the property as well. They're putting that to the centralization. But then if that be the case, then I need clarification on all other channels.
Well, all other channels is going to be GDS. It's going to be group. It's going to be
fine. We know that's on a decline.
Let's see.
I'm just trying to find the positive. Why did all other channels go up when we know GDS has been categorically at or sometimes below persistent contribution? And I'm not going to say that without
because of the shift to brand.com and OTA primarily.
Right. I'm saying that. I mean, I'm justifying that. I'm trying to understand the growth in all other channels, if that be the case.
I'm not following.
See, I think probably
it's a shift. It's a shift. It's a shift, Lauren. It's not a growth. It's just it's moving from one channel to another. Here's the reason, by the way. Here's the reason.
But
hold on. I used to sell 5,000 economy properties online every day, right? By the way, I'm not taking the brand's
of his trunk. Yeah,
correct,
exactly.
Exactly right. I used to open up my coat and say, "Hey, who wants a room?"
Yeah,
right.
Okay. Properties is a code word for something else, right?
So we used to say all the time that most of the people who are staying with us tonight don't know it yet. Right? When you're an economy, when you're roadside, you know, motels, your Super 8, your Days Inn, your Travel Lodge, your Howard Johnson, right? Somebody's in their car right now, and 4 or 5, 6 hours from now, they're going to get tired, and they're going to see a road sign, and they're going to pull into that road. They're going to pull into that place, and they're going to walk up to the front desk, and they're going to say, "What's your rate for tonight?" And that was a thing that people did. And what has changed dramatically over the last 5 years especially is people now, before they ever pull in, assuming they haven't done the research before they ever got in the car, they simply are looking stuff up on the phone and making the reservation before they ever pull into the parking lot. The number of advanced reservations that are same day made online, if you look at the major chains, especially in the economy and mid-scale, has shifted dramatically from property direct, where people used to just walk into the property. That's an enormous difference, and it's a change in customer behavior enabled by the fact that everybody now carries the internet in their pocket.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. What happened to me recently with wasn't that recently. We went to a soccer tournament. We were going to leave at one night and travel back and forward, and we decided last minute we were going to stay in market. So there was a Starwood that we'd stayed at before. It was in Charleston, South Carolina. So I went online to look at what inventory was available and pulled up Hotel Tonight. And they still had inventory on Hotel Tonight. So I went to the property. Actually, I called them first and said, "What rooms do you have available?" Because I needed a certain configuration because I had 2 kids and a wife, and went to the property in the end because they told me, went to try to get a room on property. They wouldn't match the rate. So I stood there in the lobby in front of the person, booked on Hotel Tonight, and said, "I'll take my room now, please." They wouldn't match the rate. It was crazy.
I literally saw the exact same thing happen more than a decade ago. And it was one of the funniest and most terrifying things I'd ever seen. I was in a Ramada outside of St. Louis. I worked for the company. I was visiting the property, and a guest walked in, literally had pulled into the park. You got to remember, this is 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Guest pulled into the property, walked up to the front desk and said, "What's your rate for tonight?" And they said, I forget what the rate was, $110 or something, you know. And the guy said, "Let me think about it." And they walked over to the lobby bar, pulled out their laptop, logged on to Expedia, booked the room for $89, and then walked up and said, "Yes, I have a reservation." And I knew at that moment, I will tell you, the moment I saw that, I went, this is new. This is very different, and this is going to change things in ways that at the time I didn't know how much it was going to change things, but I knew it was going to change things a lot. Now they don't have to get out of the line.
Well,
it goes back to the same attitude where you would call a hotel and say, hey, look, I see online that you have for $89 in Expedia, and the hotel was stupid enough to say, I can't honor that rate, go book it.
Well, that's what happened to Story.
Okay. But I do want to go back to I want to go back to this. I understand, and I read through the article saying that this is like saying 4 out of 5 dentists. It also means 20% of the people didn't disagree. They're saying phone calls and such. So please tell me where direct website lands in their classification.
Property direct website? I couldn't answer that. I don't know that we know the answer from where they said
because I can say all the other categories, hotels tonight and so forth. This is what I'm talking about Kalibri is I'm thinking Kalibri has purposely tailored it to a brand flavor messaging.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because that's their relationships.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Here's the thing. I hear your point. I hear your point. And I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to disagree for a very specific reason. And I want to be fair. I'm not like the brands are the best thing in the history of the world. You know that most of my clients are independents, and I believe that hotels who should be branded, and a lot of hotels who are branded probably shouldn't be, right? So I fully acknowledge the brands have their place for some properties and don't for others. Again, I can tell you, in my experience working with brands and the people I talk to today who still do that all day, every day, we used to allow properties to have their own property website. In fact, I believe Wyndham still does. I don't know this for sure. However, we absolutely required that they used our booking engine.
Absolutely.
That was mandatory.
That's a mainstream. Yeah, that's a given.
Okay, but hear me out on this, right? We had properties who would talk about the amount of traffic that they would send to our booking engine, right? And look at what a great job we're doing, yada, 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 okay? And there were certainly cases, there were certainly the one-off properties who were doing a good job of driving direct traffic to their website for the standards of that time. At the same time, I can tell you unequivocally, and I had a large enough sample size to say that it is a statistically significant sample size, at least of that class of property, that 98% of the properties, 100% of the traffic that they were sending to our booking engine originated on brand.com before it ever went to the property website in the first place, because we also provided a link to them. Right. So the fact of the matter was the properties weren't doing a great job across the board of driving direct business. They were getting business that we were funneling to them that was then coming back to us. Were there outliers? Were there properties like the ones you probably managed that were doing a good job of this? Sure, of course there were. I could count them on one hand when I was talking about like 6,000 properties a day. And literally I could name the folks where that alternative was true. And that was true for our master franchisees who had e-commerce departments and things like that. That was true for, large ownership groups. Most of them did not do a good job of it. Not because they were bad people, not because they were dumb, not because they weren't creative, not because they weren't inventive, but because they were busy running hotels all day, every day, and had other priorities.
Right. And none of that I'm disagreeing with. Here's my contention to this of why I'm kind of like digging my heels into this. This to me skews the value proposition of the data in validating you can't survive on your own. You must be a part of the mothership. If you're not a part of the mothership, you're going to lose because you don't buy that. And that's part of my Labs data that I have issues with. Their classification of, hey, we're saying that those are phone calls and front desk connections and what was the part? Well, that was your direct website that we killed. Okay, over there. So you have to rely on our brand contribution. You have to rely on our brand contribution. And by the way, you should centralize your calls so you get that back when you do.
In fairness to Kalibri, we don't know where those numbers fall, right? So I think they fall under. Okay,
how I read these numbers. These numbers say, don't do it on your own. Go to the mothership.
I can talk about focus rights data, though, right? So focus rights data, and this stuff may wind up in a focus wire thing. I don't know. I just went back and forth with focus wire on some stuff on this. But okay. The 2018 U.S. online travel overview, right? Which is where all this stuff is going online. In the hotel section, hotel supplier direct bookings, online supplier direct bookings, and that includes brand.com and property direct, right? It's being booked on a website, grew at 11%, right? The OTA growth was 10%. So they grew a little, just a little bit faster, which you can kind of say from the brand perspective, hey, see, that's working. We're doing that. Now, the big challenge is, hang on, let's look at what's happening from offline into online, right? Because again, if you look, well, and I'll do the forward-looking view. Right now, Focusrite still looks at, if you look at what's going to a supplier versus an intermediary, right? So that would be property direct, central res, walk-in, that sort of thing, brand.com, all the stuff that's going straight to the supplier. In 2018, that's about 66% still. What's happening though is it's shifting off of the voice and the central reservation stuff and going online. And so when you start looking at what they project into 2022, that is going to drop to 63%. So business that's going direct to hotels is shrinking, right? And that's a bad thing. So so what's happening is you could kind of take this Kalibri number, and you do in real numbers. Now, again, this is the change in rooms booked per day, and they changed the term. All their other numbers were 2018 and 2019 sort of thing. This is 2015 to 2019. So it's a little bit different basis, and I always get concerned when the basis is different, right? But again, they're making a point. If you look at property direct, it was minus 200,000 rooms. Brand.com was plus 200, slightly higher, 202,000 rooms.
Yeah, they're essentially the same number for all time.
Right, essentially the same number. So you go, oh, well, the property direct all went to the brand. But then you look at it and go, well, wait a second. OTA went up 186,000. Where did that come from? Right. And so you could make the argument that a lot of this property direct offline stuff is basically shifting to brand.com, but it's going to a lot of other areas. And the other point that was made by the Focusrite, the latest Focusrite stuff, is that travel agent and travel management company volume is going to go up from 10% to 12%. So that's a 20% increase in real share. And what's going to happen there? All of a sudden, you're going to start seeing group bookings and things like that. Going to large groups, be it if it's group eyes or if it's a hotel planner or Cvent and all those sorts of stuff is going to start getting automated. But those are intermediary channels, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
Exactly
there's a lot more push on intermediary, and that doesn't bode well for the hotel industry, especially considering we are in peak occupancy periods right now. Right. This is the absolute top of the
these are the good old days.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, really, I'm telling people that.
I agree.
All the
100%.
time.
That's funny.
These are the good old days. At some point, we will be talking about, man, remember the good old days? I got news for you, folks. This is it right now.
Yeah. Things kind of plateaued in 2016, and these little increases are going. Now, again, I'm calling out the Jan Freitag article. I thought was fantastic because somebody asked him a question about, well, so do you see RevPAR going to 0% growth? And he said, no. As long as we kind of have a handle on supply, we see demand, the economy is good, it'll pop up at 2% because people will raise rates. There'll be ADR going, here we go. He goes, when occupancy swings negative, when there's a downturn, it's not going to go to 0, it's going to go to minus 10. Right. So I think that's you gotta listen to Jan. He knows. He's been there. He's seen this stuff. He sees this data, and I think that's one of the wisest things I've looked at is when this turns down, it's going to be ugly because the fundamentals are all kind of stacked against the hoteliers.
Right. And the other thing I want to add to that, and I've known Cindy for a long time at Kalibri Labs. I know we all have and everything. I know she can have points of view that sometimes can be a little divisive, right? I want to say also, one of the things that Kalibri talks about a lot, that Cindy talks about a lot, is that, you know, she's very pro ownership group, more so than the brands. She may be getting the data from the brands, but if you listen to a lot of the stuff Kalibri Labs has said, if you listen to a lot of the stuff that Cindy has said over the last few years, she's definitely not using these numbers to say, thus the brands are good. In fact, far from.
I will never pin that on her. I will never pin her for that.
So I would say you may also be reading some things into the data that the data doesn't actually say. What she is,
I think about what the data can be
what she is saying is
used for, not whether she intended it that way. What the data can be used for.
Sure. But I mean, I think the point to be aware is, you know, and again, Stuart said this, Robert said this, you've said this many times, Lauren, I've said this. We know tons of independent hotels who are doing a great job, right? So it's not like independent hotels cannot drive direct business and cannot compete with these folks. Right. The question is, if you are a branded property, should you be? And if you should be, are you getting the right value for what you're paying the brand to deliver rooms to you, to deliver revenue to you, right? And those are incredibly fair questions and should absolutely be asked. But I don't look at this data and say that this data suggests that the answer to both of those questions are no. Right. I think this data is what this data is, and it's important for each property owner, each property manager to look at the data for themselves and say, is the brand delivering good value to me? And if not, should I be looking at a different flag or should I be looking at deflagging altogether, which is a very different question.
I don't want to take away from Robert's curated list, but there's two topics. One is a question to you, Stuart, later on about perpetual influencer engagement. I wanted to ask you on the show a little bit about, and we kind of talk through it. And the second was, and this is something if Ed gets to join us, he said he might try to join us later or something like that. He brought up the fact that there's a splinter group that came out of the two roads. You know, Hyatt, of course, picked them up and all this other stuff. But there's a splinter group that grabbed a whole parcel of land and are doing their own ownership group. And that seemed like an accelerant. Like, where'd that come from and how? And that seems pretty fast. That must have been in the works already. You know, why were they able to pull stuff in Terraneas in that conversation? Like, really? They're going to let that go? Why wouldn't hear it? You know, why wasn't that going to be what did Hyatt really buy if some of that stuff's splintering off? You know, like,
well,
where the hell did that go from?
It depends on, in many of these acquisitions, there may be terms in the agreement that say, oh, wait a second, if the ownership changes, we have a right to, you know,
like
we have a right to opt out. I don't know if that was part of
those are two things that are like, I'm right now knee deep in this one platform about perpetual influencer engagement. And I know, Stuart, you have had your hand on the pulse of influencer engagement a lot. So I wanted to make sure if I had the chance to pick your brain on the show about that. And the other was Ed threw that up in just a general conversation yesterday. He's like, if I hop on the show, I want to make sure we throw that in there. But I don't want to take away from your list, Robert, because there's some really good.
But I would like to deal with the top story and not chicken out on. And let's talk about the Battle of the Titans, shall we? With Marriott and Expedia are having a little contractual tiff, as they're known to periodically. And my understanding was
hostage negotiation, I think is the way to put it.
Exactly.
It's the only contract I've ever seen where it's written with letters cut out and pasted on a sheet of paper. You know?
It's like a ransom note.
Exactly.
So the deal, my understanding from this is no inside information. This is some analysts have said that the deal was up in I think it was like November 19th.
November,
right? Yeah, sometime in November. So it hasn't been cut off. I mean, there was some discussion that one would turn off the other, which I always thought would be ridiculous. Because both of these, I think the bottom line of this is both of these groups need each other. Now, they could argue which one needs the other more, but I think that's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, this is two people plummeting to Earth sharing one parachute. They both
and
they both need the parachute.
They can't take half each.
Very good analogy.
And here's the challenge. Here's the challenge that I look at. And my assumption is that they're going to come to some form of agreement that neither is really happy with, but they can both live with, right? I think that's going to be kind of the general outcome. Because the reality is, if you look at these owners, they have not gotten this big bump in terms of revenue per available room, right? That hasn't contributed to their margins, right? They've only got, it's up a couple points. What's happening? Oh, their labor costs are going up. If they're in a major market to add minimum wage, legislation go through. If they're in a market where the labor is tight, which is certainly the case, and that certainly comes in with a lot of the immigration debate where, yes, hoteliers use a lot of undocumented labor. If that starts getting, limited, that's a problem for the industry. Sorry, guys. It's true.
Especially a place in South Florida and Bedminster, New Jersey. But we won't have that conversation today.
And
Moving
probably,
on.
And probably, in fairness to the organization, probably not as much as others.
Well, that's
right?
probably true. That's
who
probably
knows,
true.
Right? Yeah,
anyway, you were saying, Robert, I didn't mean to derail us.
So in those sorts of issues, you've got owners' costs going up without any kind of sign of margin going up.
Yeah.
You've got major brands, if you're part of a brand, pushing in things saying, hey, you've got to give a member rate, which gives a discount to a whole lot of people now, right?
Yeah.
So that puts negative impact on your margins. You've got higher reward program costs, which are growing much faster than RevPAR, which is something Kalibri came out in another article and pointed out, which I thought was very good. So owners' margins are getting squeezed, right? Yeah. Right there. Now, where do they get relief? Can they get the relief from the management companies? I don't know. Marriott's pretty strong about touting their 20 to 30-year management agreement deals, sort of thing. And still, one of my favorite questions. This came up, I think it was at the Alice conference last year. I wasn't there. This is my favorite question. Somebody stood up and said, "Excuse me, can you tell me what the basic environment is in 15 years from now," right? They picked it, like 2035 or something. And the panelists and major brands were like, "No, that would be crazy. We have no idea." It's like, well, then why do we have to sign a 20-year deal?
I was to have been in that room. I mean, that's
crickets.
Yeah. That was a Bob. That is not an urban legend. That was on Bob Alter's panel. It was the former owner of Sunstone Hotels, confirmed that did actually happen. So anyway, you've got those things. That's not good. So the brands now, they're getting their profit margins. There have been some warnings and things like that things aren't going to be quite as good as they thought, right? And here's some concern in China and things like that. They aren't getting growth and margins there.
Beforehand, let's give her also credit where credit is due for it. She has been heralding the death of 1,000 cuts for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
she has been the champion of, you all have to look at she's one of the first to herald the idea of your channel profit. The other was to look at your operational distribution costs and so forth. And she has been one of those long-standing vanguards of, you all have to look at where you're spending your money. Just don't look at top-line revenue. See where it's getting bleeded down to the bottom line. And this is one of those
GoPar, let me tell you, GoPar is not a new concept. It has not been adopted by the industry. But boy, let me tell you, 1985, and I have to drop another Four Seasons Hotels. Sorry, guys. That was the foundation. The foundation of not fill out your bingo cards. That was the foundation of the not discounting, because we could march into meetings with owners where they're gonna go drop $100 million to go build a place and go, we can generate better gross operating profit than the other guys. Here are the numbers, flat out. Here's what we do, right? And that's
to put it into practical terms, just to drop in about the digital component and direct channel and so forth. If you're dealing with your marketing strategies and you're happy with a 4-to-1 return, if you're not doing a 25 net profit margin, you are losing money, because it's costing you more money to generate the revenue you're generating than it does for your operational flow through expense, even down to your EBITDA line. So you've got to consider your margins of return based on your margins of net. Obviously, there's times where you have to exceed that, because there's definitely capture of voice and capture of growth, and you have to go below a threshold. That's not. This is not
lifetime value of that guest, and
that's exactly There's a lot of other things to this, but in general terms, if you're living with a 2 to 4 to 1 ratio for all of your marketing efforts, you're losing money on that channel contribution because it's not generating the value proposition. So
anyway, the brands are getting squeezed. Actually, there was an article on MGM. They're going into a big cost cutting thing, because they're preparing for the downturn like now. They're getting ahead of the game, right? Which you normally don't see that in the casino business, because the casino business used to be recession proof. Right? But now, because only a third of their revenue comes from gaming when it used to be 2/3, all of a sudden, all this entertainment, all this food and beverage, all the rooms is all discretionary income, as opposed to really the hardcore gamblers. I don't think it was discretionary. I think that was, some sort of compelled income. So anyway, brands are getting their margin squeezed, and now the OTAs, right? Because these are a very strong period of time, for occupancy and business. And during those periods, their margins get compressed, their inventory availability gets compressed, all that sort of stuff. So their business is generally down. So everybody's margins are getting squeezed. And here in the middle of it, we have Marriott and Expedia basically fighting it out over the elephant in the room is, can Marriott get down to supposedly 10%. If they can get Expedia down to 10%, it's a big win for Marriott. And at least the analysts that I know, it's like, boom, watch their stock go, because that's a big thing. And that'll also help Hilton and the others, because they feel the others will be able to follow in that, in that wake. Expedia obviously doesn't want to do that. And I'm not sure where Marriott is now. My guess, again, no insight, is probably mid-11s, something like that. I don't know. I don't know if they got down in their last one to 11 or lower. But
this is a crazy game of chicken.
Probably under 12.
It is a crazy game of chicken.
It's a game of chicken that's going to have huge ramifications throughout the industry. And I mean, I can't envision Marriott pulling out of Expedia. I just can't see that. There's too many owners that would be disgruntled, because no matter any way you look at that, short term, that's going to have a massive negative impact on revenue for Marriott.
And Marriott owns 1% of its properties.
Right. So 99% of the owners of their properties are not going to be patient and not going to sit there and accept that. There's going to be some immense pressure.
Yeah, I think it's 43%, something like that. Let's just say 45% they manage, right? But 55% are franchised, right? So more than half, and those are the ones that are.
And going back to so go ahead, Stuart. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, these people who really control the purse strings and expect a return on their investment, they're not going to sit there for 6, 12, 18 months while the market shifts and equilibrium happens, right? Because the market would be fine 2 years from now if Expedia went away, but the 2 years between now and then would be crazy roller coaster where there'd be a massive power shift, and that could go to TripAdvisor or to Google or to Booking.com.
Probably.
Well, and it is, right? It's going to Google slowly, so this could accelerate the inevitable. But I don't see the stakeholders in Marriott being willing to take that risk. So to me, Expedia has a little more leverage in this negotiation than Marriott does.
Actually, I think they have a lot more leverage, because the one thing I didn't like about this article, I thought it was a good article. I thought it was well written. It was well researched. They talked to a lot of smart people who had a lot of great insights, right? So all of that is true. What they left out of this article that I think is really important to note is, if they're able to get Expedia down to 10%, if they're able to get them down to 10.5%, whatever it is, we also have to talk about what does that mean in terms of placement. Because obviously, if you go, if you're a property that today gets a lot of revenue out of Expedia, and you're paying, let's say, 13% on it, doesn't matter what the number is, right? And you're always consistently among the top listed properties, and suddenly your Expedia is only going to make 10% on your rooms, there's a very good chance you're going to go from a top listing to, halfway down the page, or God forbid, page 2. And then it doesn't matter what you're paying, because your revenues from Expedia are going to drop, and those franchised properties, those franchised owners are going to be pissed off. So it's this balancing act of, it's not just about the rate, it's about how much revenue they're actually generating.
Because that's the tiebreaker, especially when demand is strong, right? Because Expedia's algorithm, and I think they've done a lot of testing with it, right? And they got caught on the grain things out,
they did.
Which I think were legitimately A/B tests, right? To just see what would happen. I don't think
I don't know. I think there was some intentional dimming going on, man.
Sure, we'll call it A/B testing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that also benefited them financially. But again, I think in many cases they don't. I think they've figured out they do not. If there's a super high demand property in a city, and it doesn't matter. The Marriott Marquis in New York or something. I'm not sure. Well, I don't. That's probably not one of their top producers there. But anyway, a large.
That is the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Never mind.
I'm just talking. Some sort of high demand property. Just pick one. Doesn't matter. It could be the Casablanca or something like that, right? It doesn't really matter. Whatever property that is. They don't want to remove that from list. There's Ed. We're just talking about Marriott and Expedia arm wrestling. But they don't want that off the list because people want to stay at that property, and it's whatever. It's got a value proposition or a location or services, all those things. So they want that. But one of those factors is the how much do they get paid. So it's one of those. Hey, you know what? As a tiebreaker, you're moving down the list, and you're going to be moving down the list against your competitive set, right? Because they're doing a pretty good job of analyzing. Here's who the guy.
Where do they make money?
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. They go, what's best for the consumer? Good. We understand that. But and who knows how they tip the scales to say, yeah, these guys are close, and maybe the algorithm ranks the Hilton, Midtown Hilton, whatever, a 0.25% higher in their algorithm, but they go, you know what? We're getting a full % more here. Put them up at the top of the list.
That's a strategy
and we know how much moves there, right?
More just to do that. Hey, to keep it in the comic book analogy, Google is the Lex Luthor, I think, and Superman and Batman are battling it out. Google's just waiting for the both to get whacked off and they'll just take up the pieces because honestly, you got to think this is great.
Google, TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Hilton. There's a lot of people benefit from this negotiation, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
By far.
And that's the Wall Street reaction. I think will be very interesting to see because they're really trying to figure out what does this mean, right? I think they're looking at this as one of the bellwethers.
I wouldn't buy Expedia stock right now. That would be my tip. Because I don't think they come out of this as a victory.
As a licensed investment professional who likes to go on the record with his.
That's all
See,
right.
I mean, here's the thing.
Buy Apple. It's a good time. It's down.
Here's the thing with any of these negotiations, though, is you have to look at them, and they even talked about it a little bit in the article, where it's not as straightforward as you think. Like, so the number that Marriott wants to show that got moved is the commission, but the total revenue may not actually move.
Exactly right.
Right. Ad buying, exclusive rights. Like Expedia is not going to lose money on a deal with Marriott. They've shown their willingness to just go, you know what? We don't need you, Marriott. We'll let you go out in the cold for a bit and let your franchises, come back and scream at you.
Yeah. Because
I don't agree with that part, but I don't think they want to go that far.
Oh, they've done it.
But I think to add to that part, to put a bunch of analogies together, there is no mythical unicorn silver bullet yet that will, going back to Kalibri Labs, be able to have Marriott take what the OTAs have been providing as channel contribution for them and shift it into their market that they can actually absorb and control brand contribution, and the OTAs lose their value proposition. There is no...
Not without spending more than it costs to get that business from the OTA.
Right.
Yeah, they can't do it yet.
Right. I actually think one of the more interesting things in the article that they talked about in negotiation, was when you think about the terms you look for in your OTA agreement, you're talking about margin, you're talking about parity, you're talking about placement, you're talking about marketing support when you're talking at a brand level, right? Are people paying for marketing, brand protection, and last room availability, which is exactly where I was going, Robert. One of the more interesting things in the article they talked about was the fact that they want properties, Marriott wants properties, and I think they absolutely should fight for this one. Personally, I would, if I was the one negotiating the deal, have properties in markets where you're in peak demand, be able to dim the channel, right? I should be able to say,
that's a deal killer for Expedia, I would say.
Of course it is. I understand,
but doesn't Expedia allow a certain amount of movement?
That's
so you can't
what I'm
completely
saying.
remove it, but you can move it like within a month or two's range.
Absolutely.
Forward.
Right.
And the only thing I'll say is, if you want to look at like a real bellwether for investment, is if Expedia, because who knows how long this contract's for. But let's not forget, we're heading into a softening. I think that's widely agreed. Is if Expedia just goes, you know what, for this contract, sure, we'll let you go ahead and remove demand, because it's not going to happen a lot. And if that if they roll over on that, it's because they know. I mean, listen, they have enough data to know.
I was going to say, they have enough actuaries on their side of the fence. They can figure out forecast model trend and figure out margins or ratio value return and all that stuff.
And I'm sure they're figuring out the ripple through for all the others, right? Because they perfectly well know that the guys at Marriott are going to go wind up working for somewhere else, and they might just oopsie disclose to the new owner or tell somebody over a beer or something like that what the number is. And they don't want everybody going, they got half a point, everybody else should go down half. That's not good for Expedia's margins. So it's going to be an interesting process where everybody's going to try to say, yes, we won, right? And I did
make a comment to a client the other day. It says, a lot of the data that these places are using, because we were talking about the Marriott thing, actually about something else. I said they have a 4K view in the future, but what goes out in the public is 8 pictures of what they think is happening, because they have a much clearer picture of a lot of nuances that there is no discussion in public forums about. And what we're getting in the news is an 8-pixel version of that, which is like blunt instrument color code. We think it's going to go this, but there's no detail to the process. So, yeah.
No.
And
there are some things that they can still. There are some things they can still play with, depending on, what happens with merchant versus commission and things like. But again, boy, the hotel groups have to be very careful what they wish for, because they could just be stacking things up in a downturn where things could get very, very ugly. Again, structurally for them, right? That's the problem.
So, you picked the top story. We already hit the insights on 2018.
Actually, real quick. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to start the show by saying, hey, good to see you guys. By the way, I can only stay for an hour, but today I can only stay for an hour. So I'm actually going to run.
Well, I thought you said the thing about if Ed comes on, you can't stand him, and you were leaving immediately. That wasn't.
Yeah, that's what we heard. That's what
Robert, inside voice. So sorry.
These are all things we know.
Stay confident.
I get a kick out of it.
Well, Mr. Tim, thank you for the hour that we did get to share with you. If people know more about you and what you're doing, where they can find
They can find everything they need to know at timpeter.com. I do want to do 2 quick shameless plugs, by the way. Obviously, I'm sure you'll talk about this at the end of the show, but don't forget the HSMAI Digital Marketing Strategy Conference in January 22nd, I believe it is, in New York City at the Marriott Marquis.
Was it the 23rd? The Adrian Award, I think.
The 23rd. You're right. I'm so sorry. The 23rd. So that is something people should definitely check out. I actually am moderating a panel on integrated marketing while we're there, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And also on Thursday, January 17th, if you happen to be in the area of the HSMAI DC chapter meeting, I'm giving a talk about 2019 trends and how to grow your business, especially as we head into a softer economy. So by all means, if you're in the neighborhood, please feel free to swing by.
You're going to save me an email because HSMAI, for their lack of wisdom, has put me in charge of their entire advertising team for the digital conference. And as such, I'm pursuing video snips of things, of which I have been chasing people, and I have yet to send you a request. Would you be so kind as to give a video that I can use into some advertising campaigns? I would be
delighted. Yeah, that'd be great.
And shamelessly point out anything you point out about what it is you're going to talk about, whatever, we'll feed it to the masses. But yes, I'm trying to get videos from them. And if you do have a special hashtag, I'll be asking that question as well, because I want to get that out in early so that people can collaborate with it very quickly. So, anyways,
right, I will see you all next week. I hope you have a wonderful Friday. Sorry to bail a little early this week, but you know, as you say, once Ed shows up, By the way,
with great power comes great responsibility.
I haven't seen Ed in like a month, and I'm here trashing him. I feel a little bad. Happy belated birthday, man!
That's all right. I see we had our shows. Should go play them back. We bashed everybody for a couple of weeks.
Well, you know, I feel bad. I missed a couple of shows. You guys don't know this. I don't know that we talked about this. And I'm completely fine now. I'm still on antibiotics. I had over the holidays, I had a major sinus infection, a bronchial infection, incipient pneumonia, and was not feeling at all well. I thought I was going to make the last show before Christmas, and literally I was face down, wrapped up in blankets and sweatshirts and sweats.
I told you it was a mistake going to South America for your gender reassignment surgery.
Yeah, exactly.
I told you
exactly. I got the Zika. I got the Zika.
I still have antibiotics for ear infection. This is your dad, and this was partially. So, did everybody else get one of these? Look at how cool this card is. Look at this.
Oh,
I don't know. Look at that. Look at that card. That's Timmy's card, and then of course the cat in the back.
Nice. Very nice. Nice.
Well,
but no, Tim, thanks
I really do need to run. Unfortunately, I have a 12:30 call, so I usually try not to get double booked, but I do have to run to this one. So see you all next week, and Happy New Year to everybody who are watching. All right, Tim. Bye now.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. And now, thanks, Lauren. Ed Stewart and I all feel really bad we didn't get a card from Tim. So that's all right.
You get one of these? Look. Yeah, of course, I had to send him a check first, but after he got the check, I got the card. So you know,
mine just finally went out. We sent New Year's cards because we missed Christmas.
Yeah, I have the same thing. And to be fair, the same thing that Tim said. I am taking antibiotics for an ear infection. This is my second round of antibiotics. I can't get rid of it. Renee has the pneumonia that is coming back down, which is good. But we got hit like right just before Christmas. Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, nasty. Just God dang.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, guys. I'm the old one who's supposed to be raising topics of medical ailments. Let's please not talk about that.
That's funny.
All right. So topic. What is?
Well, I did want to say that although I didn't get a Christmas card from Tim, I did get the pinup calendar with him spread out on every single page.
Wow.
12 great photos.
Yeah. The one across the October Camaro was hot.
The October Burt Reynolds pose was disturbing.
With the snake. Oh yeah. Well, I don't know where you got that boa constrictor.
Okay. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do that. So, Mr. Stewart, what topic of your interest? I have one I want to throw up there just because I'm connected to it. But what topic did you see of interest?
You know, I don't know if the topic itself was interesting, but I really liked the user interface on that artificial intelligence for directors and whatever it was. Yeah, it was really, really well put together in terms of just breaking down the complexities of AI, the timeline, what is machine learning versus deep learning. And I spent a good 20 minutes just kind of poking around in there and enjoyed the experience. It was a good UI. So.
Right.
It's nice when you work for a large consulting firm and can spend just gobs of money on that type of stuff. Because
they probably really spent way more than they should have on it, but it'll probably get a lot of inbound links to be able to So
well, and that was actually one. That was one that had fallen off my charts because that was actually published, I think, in February, and it was one of those that it's like, oh, I'll put that in the show next week, and I always forgot about it, and I stumbled across it. But yeah, it's McKinsey & Company did an executive guide to artificial intelligence, which does have a very, very nice HTML5. I don't know what sort of CSS magic going on in there, but it's very, very, very nice.
The New York Times one that showed the proximity of the distance of the engagements of people. It was a rollover, and I can't pull it out of the New York Times. You rolled over it, and it would show you. It was a map of the U.S. The distances as to what people kept in connectivity to the ranges of people. It was very cool. I can't rip the data out of it, which frustrates me because I like borrowing data like that.
Borrowing.
Yeah. And
reallocating.
That's why the New York Times does it like that, so you can't get the data. That's why
specifically for you.
What's up with that? They got to run a business or something? What?
There is one consulting group that I will not mention that I did figure out how their content management system basically worked in their CDN, and you can pull out all their reports basically, because they don't publish PDFs, right? That's the thing, because those get distributed, and that's not quite as good if people are paying thousands of dollars for this. But I found out, you can grab all their stuff, and it's all the images and charts and things like that. Just
you
by
can go
hitting their
watch
CD.
Facebook by doing stuff like that.
Exactly.
Did we cover the Facebook stuff?
We have not covered the Facebook.
We have not covered the Facebook stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
oh yeah, let's throw it in there.
Let's go into that. Yeah, because I kind of like Facebook's getting beaten up on stupid crap here. So like saying that Facebook needs to be responsible for making sure that the apps that feed data into them, have the permission to feed that data into them. Like they do what they responsibly should do, which is put that as a requirement for the app to be approved, but they can't audit every single app that connects to Facebook to make sure that these people are actually doing this. Like to say that Facebook needs to do more, like what more are they going to do? Are they going to build an entire web authentication infrastructure that is universally accepted and deployed for that handoff of approval to be valid and trusted, from the app? Because anything else, the app, if the app wants to do something shady by saying, yes, we had permission to do this when they didn't, they are going to be able to get past any type of technical solution that Facebook puts in on that.
Right.
But, like the issue here is you have people who I think don't understand how the world works in this area, trying to
like Congress.
Yeah, trying to make an issue out of something that is like it's not an issue. And Facebook's right in this specific articles.
Who would utter such words in this environment?
And by the way, just because Facebook has data that then they can go and buy legally other data to then figure out who you are, that's not Facebook being evil. That's a bigger issue of, if that's wrong and that shouldn't be allowed, Equifax shouldn't be allowed to sell their data then. Because really it's if you really look at the issue here, the data that's being handed off is not at all personally identifiable, at least from what this article's talking about. The fact that, Facebook can easily, personally identify who this profile is.
Look at the strongest comparison you can make is Apple's ecosystem. Even they can't control it.
Right.
As much as they control the entire ecosystem environment, they still can't control the usability of the data that's being used in the Apple applications. They can eventually find it and stop them, but in all effect, they still can't control that usability.
Right. So, I mean, it's kind of, I think this is a mix of sensationalism, trying to talk about something that's a hot topic to keep people riled up. But I gotta tell you,
it's while they're still kicking them while they're down. It's like, and your dog's funny looking too. I mean, they're just they're picking on some.
Well, and the private, I would recommend there's, actually I should have put the link to Privacy International thing, but it's just like a PDF of the report. It's actually interesting to runs through how all the third-party data works and all, what's really kind of going on in the mechanics of it. So it's, yeah.
But Facebook receiving data can't be a violation of the FTC agreement that they have.
Right.
Receiving data is not misuse of data.
Because it's to pair the data it's so you can advertise. You go, hey, here's this person. We found this guy, Lauren Gray, who tends to travel to this one residence inn and, as far as we can tell, in Mississippi or something. That's the only place he ever stays.
A large trailer and it leaves with an empty trailer. Who's to know what's going on?
That's right. So, but I mean, you figure out that you've got to say, hey, here's some sort of information that we have. You put it in and you go now. But I would also argue that the greatest thing that has ever happened for Apple, Google, and Amazon is having the devil of Facebook, of Zuckerberg and Sandberg up there, because now people will not be happy until their heads are on pikes, and these other guys can just kind of go, hey, look over there.
Facebook and Volkswagen. I mean, I was saying this on the last time and on that email exchange. All of the companies are doing this. Facebook is the Volkswagen in the diesel cheating scandal, but it since has come out that every automotive manufacturer was cheating the emission standards in every country, and they've all raised their hands, and none of them have gone to jail. They've gotten really minuscule fines and haven't had to pull their cars off the road. Like Volkswagen got the beating, and everyone else got to kind of just time their announcement or leak.
Now you're going to tell me that ethanol is not good for us, and it costs more to produce a gallon of ethanol than it does a gallon of gasoline. What's up with that? You're going to shatter all my dreams today in one show?
We can continue talking. Like, we can go down that rabbit hole. How we continue to want to find really rare resources to fuel engines. Yeah, sure. Ethanol is a great idea. Let's use food to fuel our cars. Because there'll never be a shortage of food.
Yeah. I want to throw an Airbnb. New York, and I had this feeling from the very beginning of it. Obviously, Airbnb had a little bit of a big win with this. It's a huge violation of rights, because I think New York threw all their chips in and played their big Fourth Amendment first. Threw all their big chips in, their big cards. Like, we're gonna all in. We're gonna win this hand. And somebody says, "Yeah, no, I call that." And all of a sudden, they're sitting there with no cards left. They're sitting there going,
well, but to be fair, they didn't win the case, right? They got an injunction not to release the data while the case is pursued.
Right.
So
it may not be over yet. Yeah. But.
Oh, it's not over yet. But this is definitely a pushback of what else you got? Because from what we know, we're pretty much holding the higher hand right now. So
I'd love to see Airbnb's legal fees. What their costs are. They've got to have so many attorneys on staff at this point.
They're probably swinging they got so many rights. They're begging for a left. I mean, good gosh. I mean, they're fighting everything everywhere. I mean, for that matter, Uber's probably doing the same thing. Their lawyers are probably stupidly happy at this particular point.
Mm-hmm. It's always who wins.
Since we had a bit of a low.
But I think it's a very interesting thing from the city's perspective. How do you basically in the hotel? This is a very important issue for the hotel industry too, right? Because this has everything to do with how you collect these room occupancy taxes from these individual players of who's doing this, especially when they start having limitations on numbers of days that units can be rented. Right? Mm-hmm. You can't just rely on Airbnb because they could be renting it through HomeAway or VRBO or any of these other platforms. So the city needs to somehow figure out that Stuart Butler's residence is such and such, and is he violating the rules? Because
he's a super host.
Well, yeah, because the downside is you lose affordable housing. Right? Yeah. You don't get paid taxes. You're disadvantaging the hotels because there's no room occupancy tax which supports the destinations. So it's an important issue.
It also infringes on privacy and security of the individual patrons. There's a lot of because they're not regulated like a regular hotel, even though they're operating like a hotel.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, very true.
So, just wait till ADA laws apply.
Oh yeah!
Could you imagine being a homeowner, getting the lawsuit notification from the
now you've got to put in a chairlift in your backyard pool.
In his pool.
Yeah. Did you see that Beyonce's website got flagged for ADA lack of compliance? Queen Bee is under suit. My God, is there no justice in this world?
That's funny.
It just goes so the value of why these laws are in place, but the silliness of how they're being chased and pursued by law. The lawyers are going for money. They're not going for.
The problem is it's so gray, right? There still is ambiguity over what exactly does that mean. If you're WHAC 2.0 compliant, does that cover everything? Does the law related to access to your property even apply to websites? That. The Department of Justice hasn't even ruled on that yet. So it's individual courts that are making rulings. It's crazy. So, I mean, the best thing you can do is put a good foot forward and make a good effort for as many people.
Show best effort to accommodate as many as possible. And when the scummy law firms start coming, just lean on the best effort and say, sure, go ahead, take us to court.
That's right. Technical caveat. little technical caveat here. For those who are running WordPress websites or template-based websites like that are there, there's a lot of GDPR plugins that are going out there. One in particular that's very good but has its technical issues is WebToffee. Now you got to be really careful because we had a huge meltdown on trackability, because what this does is it intercedes as to where the IP is being pinged from, and you identify your EU versus your non-EU. You can classify where these things are coming through, and as soon as it does that, it will neutralize your analytics right off the bat. It'll kill everything.
Yeah.
And then you got to go in, and you can. And they do a nice WYSIWYG, but it's still, if you're an advanced or a high volume website, it messes with so much stuff, because you got to go in and literally change the script to know how to have it intercede, not just that it intercedes.
Honestly, Lauren, I would recommend strongly against trying to determine whether someone's coming from the EU or not, and treating them differently, because I think at the end of the day, the GDPR rules, the regulations are fair, right? They're not really asking you to do a whole lot that is too cumbersome. You don't really lose a lot of control if you approach it properly, with clarity, with visibility, transparency into what you're asking. So I would just treat non-Europeans the way GDPR is asking you to treat Europeans.
And even with that said, these things are getting ahead of everybody else, and they're messing with your script loads and your analytics functions. And yes, to your point, treat everybody the same. Don't isolate EUs versus non-EUs. I completely agree with you that it's there for a good reason. These plugins, if not properly installed, and even if they are properly installed according to their spec, still creates a mess of stuff. So don't just do it thinking you're solving the little cookie roll thing. Hey,
an off-the-shelf solution to a complex problem is always going to have some pretty steep drawbacks to it. Yeah. It's either going to be way too over-protective or a scam. And
or
by
you
the
find
way,
the toffee people are now taking all that data and filtering out and sending it off to either a foreign actor or Facebook.
What a great way! What a great way to violate the law you're trying to.
Exactly. That is genius.
It's that knee-jerk stuff, and I say this from knee-jerk stuff. Is like, they're like, "Oh, we're plugging this in." We talked to this ADA compliance company that's selling us how to be ADA compliant. We need to be GDPR compliant. We're shoving all this in, and all of a sudden it's like, boo, everything drops off. We're like, guys, what did you just do? And we have to go in and start tearing it apart going, what the hell is this doing? It's jumping and cutting it off. Anyway, so just
most people, their staging sites or wherever they tested don't have the analytics aren't plugged in or anything, right? It's not so that's an area people have to be aware of to go.
Those who run websites, do a dev, a staging, and a live that way, and also keep it on multiples of servers.
What? Come on, man. That sounds like too much work. I thought once you finished a website, it was done.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what are you talking about? Make changes live on the fly, man. That's the way to go.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Hey, hey, if it breaks, we'll fix it.
I don't often audit my own code, but when I do, it's in the live environment. Right? Isn't that the internet meme?
Fuel travels 2019.
My website much, but when I do, it's live code.
And Fuel Travel, are you going to announce your new tagline? Code fast and break stuff, I think.
That's right. Yeah. That's why Facebook for so long, right?
Yeah. I want to make one very, very important point. I will be outspoken against anyone in the hospitality news, but never Beyonce. We love Beyonce. Just for the record, hospitality people marketing loves Beyonce.
Good old Queen Bee.
Everything she has ever done, always. Or in
fact,
future,
I don't know if you saw this, but at the VMAs, when Kanye West got on stage and started in front of Taylor Swift, Robert was right behind him, was about to do the exact same thing, and Kanye West beat him to it. So yeah. That's how much he likes.
Hey, I don't say anything. I don't see anything negative about Taylor. I saw
Taylor.
I actually saw Taylor for her first time. I saw Taylor for the first time on her Reputation tour, which was quite the large-scale tour. So.
Yep, and you learned very quickly that she sings very off-key live.
And her fans don't.
They don't seem to mind.
It's a great. It's authenticity, Ed. It's authenticity.
It is authenticity.
You brought up the Two Roads thing. I brought it up early in the show without you here, saying if you joined us, that we wanted to throw that into the mix of chat of where did this come from? That what did Hyatt buy? If there's this whole splintering of properties that are going off in another direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys know about this?
No,
like some of the properties that
supporter
you would have figured would have been like the properties that Hyatt wanted in this are now like part of this other company now.
What is the other company?
I don't know the name of it. I haven't gotten it yet, but like they're managing Terranea, they're managing Embassy Row. Like these are the properties that you would have been like, those are the ones Hyatt would have wanted, right? Terranea. I mean,
yeah.
Like I think that's probably one of the best properties in the Two Roads portfolio for that. Yeah, exactly. So I found out about it yesterday. I don't have all the details yet, but yeah, craziness.
The other was, and I wanted to bring this up with Stuart because I'm finding more and more platforms being offered for perpetual influencer engagement. It's not just where historically we've come up and hired micro influencers to come in under contract to do a prescribed grouping of things, posts, conditionally images, so forth and so on. But now there's these platforms like Grin that are out there that are perpetual influencer engagements that you literally have a list of your influencers, okay, that you're dialoguing with to collaborate content. I'm not that comfortable with it yet. I don't understand it well enough to know even how to touch that stuff.
As a rule, when something is effective, it's really, really hard to scale. And this happened with a lot of different marketing channels. SEO is a great example, say link building or something like that. People find out that there's value to a certain commodity, whatever it is. Let's try to find a way to turn that, ramp that up really quickly. And that to me is what they're trying to do here. It never, ever works. You sacrifice quality for convenience every time. And I wouldn't recommend it personally.
I'm totally neutral about this. I'm just seeing this stuff, and I'm like, I can see where hey, having a constant dialogue with people that have a stronger voice. I understand that, but isn't that kind of what you're already doing with your social influence? Anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I think the smart marketers don't need this. The ones that are trying to jump on a bandwagon because they've read a ton of articles saying that influencer marketing is effective and they're trying to cut corners and to jump into tools like this. And typically what's going to happen is, like I said, the quality is going to be bad because the people that are supplying the product, in this case, the so-called influencers, are going to be also people looking to cut corners. So it's kind of a marketplace where the hacks on both sides of the equation can come together.
The biggest problem with this is influencers are meant to be that step closer to authenticity in marketing because no one trusts advertising.
Exactly, yeah.
So, stripping that from it.
So don't be unauthentic.
And this is the thing I don't think brands understand is dabbling in this thing in a less than quality way actually will have negative brand impact. Like there'll become a point where people identify the spam influencers. And once a consumer knows that, this person sells their voice to anyone who buys it, like that immediately goes to your brand. Like, so be careful, like trying to cut corners in something that's meant to be organic and authentic. It's not going to work out well for you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, spend the time investing in building relationships with people that actually have some value to offer to your brand, and you have value to offer to them. Where there's some kind of synergy. I know.
Where's the short
marketing is hard. Good
I need rooms for Saturdays, Stuart.
Can you call it that knows the truth, that knows those people, that calls those people, that calls those people?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I can bring in some Snapbook people and we can sort it out.
Yeah, some Snapbook people that do some blockchain.
Yeah.
Give me some AI in there.
That's right.
Oh, fun.
So we are close to 1 o'clock Eastern. Question is, do we want to hit the rut row now, or is there another topic out of the wonderfully curated list that Robert gave us that we want to make sure we don't miss, and then we hit the rut row?
I don't even remember what the rut row was, I'll be honest.
The rut row wasn't that exciting this week.
You didn't? I like the rut row.
Rut row, man. He dogged
How
on
much
your
of
rut
the
row.
internet is fake? Turns out a lot of it, actually. I don't think a lot of people recognize that.
Really?
Really?
Wait,
All right, then I'm gonna
everything
start
that's
leading.
written online is legitimate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, the saying was like, if you heard something and people were like, "Where did you hear that?" It was always bloke down the pub said, and if the bloke down the pub said it, then it was legitimate, right? It was gospel,
Right.
And that's shifted from bloke down the pub to I read it on the internet. So if I read it on the internet, it has to be true.
That's right.
Hey, silly question. How do you think the algorithm gets impacted when you stop or pause people on Facebook for 30 days? How do you think it influences their distribution of content? From an algorithmic point of view, from Facebook's point of view. Because
How
What are you saying? You're saying you're turning off their Facebook page? What are you saying?
Garbage in. And so before I used to just unfriend them, like, screw this. I don't really want to listen to your crap. Now I'm like, you know what? Pause them for 30 days. Pause them for 30 days. I wonder how that difference affects their visibility to people.
the signal of being paused.
Yeah.
As opposed
The
to
answer is
unfriended?
2, Lauren.
Yeah.
2?
42.
Well, of course, no, 42.
42.
You carry. Yeah. Universe. That's universal. But
Yeah, I'm sure it's a signal, but I mean, one person being paused by one person.
Yeah.
You know, if it was the real Lauren Gray, it would probably have more of an influence. But if it's just you,
well, I'm trying to make the 16-year-old do what I ask her, but she seems to be hell-bent on making music. But you know.
No.
I'm not touching that one.
I'm going to put that on a quote.
Yeah.
Put out a meme. And,
I told you, I got my
Lauren Gray.
safety security. She's out there so that if anybody wants to attack Lauren Gray, that's the Lauren Gray you go for. The multi-million person followed Lauren Gray. Go after her. Go get her. Leave me alone.
So, you know, like I think you're looking at a needle in a haystack type signal on that question, Lauren.
Yeah.
I mean, and it really is. I think more weight is the dead weight that never unfollows. Like, I think that the dead weight that never unfollows, never engages with the post, that has way more stick than, you know, someone actually actively leaving.
Well, in mass, right? It does.
Right.
But, you know, there's probably a hierarchy of signals, but then they multiply by the number of them.
But let's
So-
also be fair.
Signals.
No one watching this has a you know, a huge following anyways in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, relatively speaking.
To you know.
Well, and it's easier for these algorithms to pick up positive signals. I mean, once you start looking at over time and dropping, you know, it used to be there and stuff like that, that gets very, very common. And I'm not saying Facebook doesn't do it. They probably have some stuff that tracks things over time.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, for them to look at it is like, okay, well, they could have that metric, but what does it yield, right? You know, does it give them that much more quality than this other, you know, this other metric? So,
some of it's weird too. Like we found some anomalies in the news feed, like how people see things just with our platform, and we don't understand it all the time. But we do identify these things quite often where we're like, well, why is this doing this? And you know, it's a lot of it's black magic that you'll never know how Facebook's doing it. And as soon as you start to figure it out, it will change.
Yeah, it changes all the time.
Speaking of black magic on this, I want to go over and I'm going to put a link up. There is a neat little tool that I'm playing with just because because Ed's on the show and he loves when I mess with
Is it called
tools.
black magic?
No.
So the one thing I wanted to, just for people who didn't read the how much of the internet is fake, I think I should just go through the subheadings on it. The metrics are fake, and they do have a great video of a Chinese click farm, which is just worth. Those are great videos. You'd go, oh my god, they've got
it's insane.
A wall of phones, and they're just going down and tapping these things. But the metrics are fake. The people are fake. The businesses are fake. The content is fake. Our politics are fake. We ourselves are fake, and those are kind of so,
I
like
but I think there is, you know, some tangible things to get from this this article. So the example they give, right, is a bunch of folks, they set up fake websites, a fake distribution network for display advertising, essentially, and then they wrote essentially a malware or virus to go and infect other machines that simulated real traffic to these fake websites and then sold ads on them. So if you bought number of impressions of video ads or display ads, whatever it is, it looked, to all intents and purposes, like people were looking at your advertising, right?
Great
so
completion rates, yeah, exactly. They're
right.
watching
So
the whole video.
and they programmed it so it was natural looking, right? So some people bailed out, some people didn't. There was mouse movements, really sophisticated. If the people designed this ecosystem put their efforts towards good in the world, they could really solve some real problems.
Oh yeah,
because it's really, the Machiavellian side of me really appreciated the complexity of what they built in this ecosystem.
You know, I feel bad. I was going to confess on something. See, back in the day,
Lauren,
I made lots of Twitter accounts, and I'd make lots of websites for hotels. And then when I wanted to do a Facebook page to add, I would go over and go to Fiverr and pick up about 50,000 followers, Twitter and all that stuff, ghost them out because there was nothing to track machines at the time. And then I would go over and cross-sell promotions between all the Twitter accounts. I automate them, feeding, retweeting everybody else. And so all of a sudden I had mock
ethical marketing.
A promotion.
I wish I believed
I got to
you were
drop
joking.
off. I'm checking the statute of limitations on a couple of these things.
Well, because at the time, the markers of people were the only authentication you were looking for is how many followers do they have and how much engagement do they have.
But Lauren, you remember when we just had the conversation about authenticity and not being able to scale anything that's effective? You remember that conversation?
Right. But this is I was small potato. It's in my history. I've gone through reform. I've gone through the 12 steps. I'm good.
Now he cheats.
12 days since I went over
different ways.
Relapse. Relapse.
He cheats in completely different ways now.
That's right. He's evolved how he cheats.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
So my point being, right, with this. Any savvy marketer that lost their money to this farm deserves to lose their money because they weren't tracking things the appropriate way. They weren't looking at their advertising spend in terms of what does it mean in real dollars. If you're following just vanity metrics like impressions and stuff like that, then you're spending money in the wrong places, and you need to stop.
But other ones who are using it will also be like some of these influencers and things like that who go, and it's kind of like, yes, you could go to the Fiverr thing and have somebody go do whatever, but some of these sophisticated ones, and it's the same with TripAdvisor, right? You got these sock puppets that look real that are influential.
Yeah, I had a client come to me the other day. We help them with some stuff. We don't actively do their SEO, but they ask us questions about it. So because they do stuff internally, they said, what do you think about this? We're going to go to Mechanical Turk and basically pay people on Mechanical Turk like 10 cents a pop or whatever it is to go and perform this specific search, and we'll have a bunch of different searches so it's not all the same one, and click on our website from that results page. And they were going to do it in a way that to try to trick Google into making it look like people were clicking through from the search engines, which would obviously have a positive influence on SEO. But it's like that mentality, the fact that that still exists today, how many times have things like that happened? And you're always going to end up getting caught, regardless of the ethical question.
You break your baseline data. So then you actually, the longer you cheat, the harder it is to get out of that mode to actually try to get the quality marketing and engagement. And
it's just fraught with
all my bullshit that I put into these campaigns, because when it got legitimate, I had to go back and clean all the crap I started them with.
And
really skewed the data.
If you're cheating like that, and at the same time griping about laws like GDPR, you're the reason GDPR exists.
Exactly right.
There's one particular group.
Go on to Fiverr and just look at what you can buy, and they'll let you know how it's still working. Because you can buy whatever you want.
Yeah, you can.
No,
it is. It's a sad thing in this. It's the truth of it.
The on-demand economy. Yes. just to create.
So
Shorby.
Shorby. What it does expand the links available on your Instagram profile page, where you'll usually just have your one link. This gives you a little bit more flexibility to allow you to expand different things, so you can actually have different crossover link engagements. I'm going to try playing it out with campaign runs that I'm doing right now.
So when is Instagram? When will Facebook kill this?
Who knows? But until I do, it's something to use.
Yeah, because you're saying retarget anyone who clicked on your link, get the most of your Instagram. But I got to think this is something that either Facebook goes out and buys these guys because they just go, oh, that's kind of clever.
Oh,
We didn't want the people to do that. Or they just go, or they change their algorithm, or they kill the. Because
if anybody's done Instagram, you're constantly having to manipulate your one link capability. This allows you to fragment that out a little bit and have some diversification of what you're connecting to. For now.
Or
I'm sure
your link could go to a page of many links.
It does, and that's the benefit of this too. It gives you greater diversity.
You could just do that yourself.
Yeah, just have a page on your website that has different content,
like
that's
a blog, or
that's what we used to do.
Things like
this
that.
Allows for, but here's the problem of attention span. Not everybody. First, you can't convey the message clearly just for that one.
Is Lauren about to talk to us about attention span?
Hey, if you're trying to figure out what goldfish are doing, you should ask the goldfish. So.
Yes.
Right.
This is true. This is true.
That's what I say.
And to be fair, this is a crazy episode because you were defending Facebook earlier, Ed. So I mean, anything goes.
I was defending Facebook because I'm sorry, I'm so tired of people's opinions. I really am.
That's right. If it was everyone just had Ed's opinion, it would be such a better, easier place.
It would be.
Everyone would be right. Yeah. But Ed's world is turned upside down because there was a particular football game outcome which was not exactly what he had.
Yeah. Tough start to the year. Tough start.
Reality check sets in, huh?
Yeah.
Well, just like the economy, all good things have to end.
That's right.
So,
what was that?
Oh, that was.
And if UCF ever got into a good conference, they'd probably understand how good they really are.
They'd be better than Stuart's team, that's for sure.
This is true. They would. Hey, I believe we beat you last time we played you guys.
That was the last time you guys were good, though, as well.
This is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, we're on the other side of the pendulum than your team right now.
You are. I thought it was funny, all the people saying that they should have been top 4 because they were unbeaten with the schedule they had,
Yeah, but here's my favorite thing about it, because everyone misunderstands what that whole program and everything about like that whole campaign. It's a brilliant study in marketing. There's actually now multiple PhD students inside of UCF have written about it because it completely trolled the world to create a massive brand exposure. And it was wildly successful to the point. And what's funny is the brands that we were trying to get up to the same level as, they're the ones who actually made it possible. So the SEC is so insecure in this whole idea of like another brand coming up that they actually have spent the majority of their effort talking about UCF, which it's a brilliant study in marketing and playing the heel. But understand, UCF prior to doing all of this was seen as a little Florida school. Like that was like, when someone would say UCF, they'd be like, oh, that's a little Florida school. You're a commuter school. No, it's the largest university in the United States and houses more students on campus than like UF and FSU put together.
And no one had heard about it 10 years ago.
Right. It's just not 150 years old. Like that's the thing. It's been playing football since like 1996. So, so it was brilliant. And honestly, if we were going to have to lose eventually, I'd rather lose that way than some of the other ways we almost lost this year. I was very happy to lose with a backup quarterback against a team that is a very good team in a way that it almost didn't happen. Like we barely lost. We almost came back and won. And even in what went wrong in those plays, like it was the best way it could have gone wrong. So I'm fine with it, especially because we should be announcing in the next like 48 hours a student transfer that's going to really trigger the SEC, which makes me laugh even more.
And Ed's therapist has told him it's really important that he's okay with this.
I thought I was going to be really, really bad. And I wasn't. I was surprised that when it happened, I was like, yeah, all right. So yeah. But anyways,
It's okay.
it is.
There will be a
name of the
morning.
show.
There will be a morning period. You have
I think it's already
all the way
passed.
until September. It has. That's
No,
good.
yeah, like that's the thing. I think like it's already passed because none of us are mad at the way we lost. We lost by 8 points against a really good brand.
To a good team. Yeah.
Right. Like we lost a game that we were expected to lose, and we lost it by about the amount we were expected to lose it by.
Yeah.
So
That's way better than being shut out by a team you were favored to beat by 4 points. So,
right. Or being Georgia, just in general right now. And maybe that's also what made me feel better. But by the way, Lauren, you're muted because I see your mouth moving and don't hear anything.
Yeah, I was trying to keep the dog barking to a minimum, but and you know, there's so many other ways. Bad referee calls, temporary referees are put in place and made bad
Listen,
calls.
because that happens on both sides. As long as referees are bad consistently, they don't play a role in the game. And in this game, the referees were bad consistently. I have nothing to argue about on that side of it. It was just the pure fact. This was a quarterback's third start in his college career. And it was too big for him. And the team didn't pull out the extra effort to try and, overcome it. So I'm okay with all of that.
And so Ed has already disposed of the kid's body in the
there is a player on our team that I was like, at the end of the game, I'm like, we need to cut this player. And that was just the irrational response.
And when Ed says cut, he means cut.
The player who spiked the ball, if you watch the game, because that was the swing in momentum that we never got back. You can't spike the ball in college football, by the way.
Right. Yep.
And it's a hefty penalty.
Yeah. So out of the other contents of things that you put together, Robert, was there anything that we missed since we covered pretty much all of the fun things and the random ones that I threw in, was there anything that you want to make sure we definitely hit before we close it out?
No, I think we covered pretty much.
I
just threw in the 10 skills that will help you get a better job in 2019.
Well, thank you.
They were missing one really important one, which most applicants to us these days tend to lack, and that's common sense. But
I know it's such a mislabeled thing
because it's not common. Not a lot of people
really
have sense.
Just brilliant.
So just as a thing for those who are watching the show and for us into consideration, I've already mentioned this to Ed. I'm thinking about, as every time a turn of the year happens, whether we have the show at the right time of the week, and also do we have the right name? Because as we keep emerging more and more content into our conversations, is it still good to call it This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing?
I've never thought that was a good name.
And college
to be
football.
fair. To be fair.
College football.
I do agree with adding the and college football.
We should make the title longer, if anything. I think.
Well, yes, because it's not long enough. God knows it's not long enough.
What is the character limit on a domain name? Do we know what that is? Is it 70 characters?
We're going to find out. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to find out. Here's one. No, I was thinking I bought a few domain names just to have them for the Hospitality Show, the Marketing Show. There's a few variations, but the idea of it being, do we really need to designate digital anymore? I mean, truly, honestly, we started with it as being digital because it was a distinction. We now talk about marketing.
To be fair, even when you started, digital was still not a distinction.
Oh yeah, we were on the wave was already crested and rolling down. I mean, we were doing this simply because people identified understanding that there was a conversation about it. Now, at this stage of the game, I mean, we're into our fourth year, well into our fourth year. You know, is it time for us to change it to the hospitality marketing?
I think we should move it to timpeter.com. It's where the rest of the internet lives.
It's a lot shorter right off the bat. First, there's more content there, right there. You know, those are two good ones right there. But just under consideration, because I'm going to make a new sign. That one's had its life. And we're doing the live broadcast at the Digital Marketing Conference again this year as well. So
now, will everyone be there?
The conference?
I'll be there,
I will be in Nassau with my family.
Really?
Okay, well.
Yeah, we will miss you.
There you go. Yeah. Don't lie.
Robert, you'll be
there. I am excited because I
I'm
will actually
presenting as
meet
well.
Tim in person for the first time. I have not met Tim before, so
Wait, you've
Really?
never met Tim
What?
in person?
never met Tim in
Really?
person.
It's gonna blow your mind. He is 6'5".
You know,
Okay.
that's funny because I think it was last year's where I'd met. I think it was where I met Lauren for the first time in person, and
And he's a giant.
he is a giant, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Tim is
It's like
also
little four,
Tim is
4'10"
also a giant
elfish
man.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little gnomish type guy.
We'll do yeah, no time. No, but we're gonna do the live show. Julie already asked me if we needed the table and so forth. I said, yeah, it'd be great. Close to power cable would be great. Yeah.
They didn't
Holy
give you crap or mistreat you about it this time?
I guess apparently with Holly being in the mix and Robert being in the mix, we have a consensus now.
Inside
that
power.
they need to play nice to us.
I didn't
You
want
know?
to say anything for Tim, but Tim doing the thing they started talking about because I'm on the committee for the thing, and they said, "Well, who could be good?" I had Tim Peter, and everyone went, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
It's good to have friends in low places.
But I,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
always
But I've also told them to call it the HSMAI Digital Marketing Strategy. I can't even remember the name.
That's what it is right now.
Digital Marketing
Yeah.
Strategy Conference should just be the marketing conference. HSMAI.
Yes.
That's it. Don't
Yeah.
need all those extra words. It's not.
The board, the digital council has been gone. It's absorbed into the marketing board, so it should also change the conference name as well. But with that said, Robert, I'm going to need as many hashtags from you as possible, like I was mentioning to Tim earlier on for his presentation, because that's one downfall our conferences always have is you want to engage with what you're listening to, and you don't, one, know their Twitter handle, two, what hashtag people are using except for the one for the conference, and even that's hard to find. You know, give me a hashtag for this particular piece of it so we can dialogue on it and get some content.
I think you just even do it. I think you keep it simple. I told them HSMAI like DMC or something like that for digital marketing.
It's actually digital.
Be incredibly complicated and hard to spell.
It's digital.
What? There's Seth. Seth mooning the people. There he is.
He's trying to fill in for Kelso.
Yeah.
So for those that what we're talking about is on January 23rd in the Marriott Marquis, New York, is the HSMAI Digital Marketing Strategy Conference. Its current name, Digital Marketing in the Current World. There's two keynotes, one from Google, and the other is somebody that's kind of coming back into the mainstream again, and that is David Atkins, who was quiet for a while because he had one big primary client for the longest time, and
he's been parole, I understand.
He's been huge in the DMO space.
Yeah, he's been in that space, but he hasn't been. He used to be much more engaged publicly with the conferences and so forth. What I'm saying is he's back into speaking again, which he hasn't been for years. So it'd be fun to have him back.
Again, he has been, just not at the shows you've been at.
Which one has he gone to? Which one
goes
is he speaking?
All the major destination, all the destination marketing events. Like he's been. Oh God, yeah, like especially all the Florida-based ones. Yeah.
Well, the Florida ones I understand because that was his bread and butter.
Well, I didn't know. I thought he had a 3-year deal with those.
Yeah. I just didn't know he went outside of the Florida market. That's all. That's good to know then. All right, cool. No, he's really brilliant. I'm really
as long as he's better than that futurist guy from last year. Because
oh my gosh,
that was
is he? Was he? No.
To be fair, like it was us watching it. I'm sure to everyone else, they're like. And he did give me he gave me an Amazon button, so I can't be that negative on him.
An Amazon button
for Keurig.
And he's the closing.
That's true.
And Holly has some fun pieces. Jay Hubbs, who is with Remington,
I love Jay.
Really funny,
Jay's
brilliant
awesome.
guy.
Yeah. Huge Star Wars fan.
Between Jay and Holly, it should be a blast to have them curate the whole conversation for the course of the day. Robert had a strong hand in the content that was being gen. Tim Peters
Robert used his strong hand.
He's a strong hand. He's a strong hand.
Anyway, slapped Holly, shook her, and said, "Come on,
this is what we're gonna do."
I'm sorry. I firmly believe Holly could kick your ass.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, Holly,
my money's on Holly.
Yeah.
I think Holly take all us on and kick her. She'd be the Chuck Norris of everything. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Agreed. Well, you guys all enjoy being in New York City at the end of January. I will be swimming with dolphins and pigs. So
swimming with pigs.
To swim?
Have you not heard about the pigs in the Bahamas?
No.
Google it. You'll want to do it. There's the Exuma Islands are not far from Nassau, and the only thing on them are these pigs. And as you come up to the island, the pigs jump in the water and come up to you, and like they're like super friendly and will swim with you because people have been feeding them like
looking for food,
cabbage and stuff like that. So we're going to go swim with
Stingrays do that in the Turks and Caicos. Yeah, all these sorts of animals will do things for
But
food.
it's crazy because like the pigs are like, go YouTube Exuma, EXHUMA pigs, and look at it, and you'll be like, man, I want to do that.
Mine was more St. Croix based, and it was the beer drinking pigs. So it's still kind of a common theme, but there was beer.
Yeah.
But so with that in mind, also don't forget that there are Adrian Awards, which is HSMAI's big gala associated with announcing and identifying those who submitted an award request and that got an award.
I'm bitter on the Adrians this year. I'm completely bitter on them. We won some great awards, but the one that we should have gotten like really good recognition on, which was the Myrtle Beach Cooperative, we ended up getting a bronze, which is you instantly get a bronze. It's probably the most interesting thing that's been done in the DMO space as far as like tying the whole market together. And has driven huge results for everyone in it. And we got a higher rank off of our timeshare company using the Cocoa Beach Pier to drive leads than we did off of the Myrtle Beach Cooperative. I was quite disappointed with it.
To be fair to it, the gala itself, there is some amazing. I mean, there's the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that submit to the awards. I said that not in jest because there's a ton of judges. All of us are probably judges for most of it. There are some exceptional presentations. The real value to me out of anything with the Adrians is the hour and a half prior to the awards, because the awards have already been determined and they're just being given.
Right.
Is the acknowledgement of the top 25, which last year we had the prestigious Mr. Tim Peter part of.
Yep.
And there's some brilliant minds in that conversation when we say that. The other is that with the networking that goes on beforehand, if ever you want to be able to dialogue with people that are really the in people to what's going on to their industry,
the ones who will never otherwise return your phone call.
Yeah, right. Exactly. These are people you can't get past the gatekeepers on. You can walk over and have a drink. Don't talk people. You get very far, but be able to connect and put a face in them to identify you. Awesome time. But it's still hands down does not beat.
When is HSMAI going to wake up and make Stuart one of the top 25 minds?
Well, I'm 26 every year.
Yeah, exactly. Just outside. Just outside.
That much. Well, and
all right, so
I've now put two and two together. It's the restraining order, isn't it, Ed? It's the restraining order. That's why he's in the Bahamas. He can't even be. It's that distance. If we figure out the radius,
yeah,
from
you
New
all
York
moved too close to Orlando, so I had to move out a little bit.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
But we'll have to make that a corrective measure.
The 1,700 mile. But I think Stuart needs to be nominated for top 25 minds.
I think
extraordinary minds.
So, Robert, have you got it yet? Have you even hit?
I've never. Yet? No, I've never cracked the top 1,500. Yeah.
Europeans don't have.
So what we need to start now, January 4th, on starting a petition to get all of you all on the top.
We need a campaign.
Why do I get the feeling Lauren is going to Fiverr right after this?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I got a plan. Here.
Well, for the record, I think Robert needs it a lot more before I do. So.
No, I think
just because he's really old and been in the
industry.
Stuart's worried I'm going to die before I get recognized.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a posthumous.
I mean, it's a fair concern, Robert.
Exactly.
Hey, Robert, do you get to share who your new client is, or is that a secret?
Oh,
was a secret.
Well, he doesn't have to share it.
I think I can. Yeah.
And I think if there's any doubt, and you absolutely should.
I would probably wait till we press this.
No. It has been. No, there's one last little thing. No, I'm working with JD Power now. In addition to Focusrite. Right, I managed to get both of them to kind of agree to let me do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
and they have really, really good data, and they're just embarking on a mobile app study across the whole travel sector, which will be very, very interesting.
Wow.
Ooh, I want to talk to you about that.
Focus, right? And JD Powers is in this.
And JD Powers, yeah.
Wow.
So I have access to some pretty interesting research.
Yeah.
That sounds like a top 25 mind to me, for sure. Right?
JD Powers seems to say so.
Ringer. All right. So with that said, we've mentioned the Adrian's, definitely that, but I also want to make sure that with the digital marketing conference, honestly, the best, other than the content, the best is the networking. If you really want to meet some really cool people, that conference is so good. It's just really the reason why I'm friends with
this year. I hear it's not going to be as great.
Yeah, because when some person's going to be in the Bahamas. You would say that, wouldn't you? You would say that.
I mean, it's really sad the conference isn't happening this year.
Actually,
this might be a down year, but other than this year,
I heard Ed was going to be in the Bahamas. Actually, you guys may be able to meet my daughter. I don't know if I'll bring her by the conference, but she's going to be there with us. So we figured.
You're saying if Ed was going to go there, you wouldn't have brought your daughter?
Oh well, yeah, obviously, yeah, that's the point.
Ed, will you get on the show when you're swimming with the pigs?
Sure.
Just hop on the show when you're with the pigs.
Sure.
Coordinate the
can we hook a GoPro up to Webinar Jam?
I'm thinking we can. Yeah, I think if we just have the right Wi-Fi, I think we're good.
I could at least do a pre-recorded segment for you. We've never done that before, have we? We should try.
No, we have not done a pre-record.
A pre-recorded segment. Holly couldn't be here today, but earlier she called in.
If I keep working with my animation software, Holly will be with us. And she'll say whatever we want her to
say. Lauren is now passed well beyond. We now know that he's not doing.
Lauren is Black Mirror
spam. Yeah, he's now going. Lauren's going full deep fakes now. Great.
Nice. Nice.
All right. With that, thank you everyone for having listened to our show today and the degradation thereafter. Mr. Stewart, if people want to know more about fuel travel and your amazing podcast, which are you doing a new one today?
Yeah, we're actually doing one on reviews, responses to online reviews, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So how to respond to reviews, how not to respond to reviews, with real life examples of people that have done amazing jobs at just pissing off everyone that reads the reviews.
Confrontational is absolutely
that's the way to do it.
That damn reviewer,
or accusing the reviewer of being fake. That's my favorite.
It's the best. I had so much fun researching this episode. It was phenomenal. It was some people out there have some real issues.
Platforms? Are you going to look at platforms for usabilities, like consolidation platforms for aggregation of reviews and guest engagement and stuff? Do you guys look at any of those?
In this episode, no. It's purely just a philosophical discussion about how you should treat your reviewers the same way you should treat people on property, and we're pointing out the absurdity of how you would never accuse someone on property of being a liar.
There's the Edward StOnge method, which is if you disagree with me, you're wrong, and it should be clearly stated in your reply. And then there's the Stuart Butler method of, hey, let's all get along. You're probably right, but I'm not too sure. And then you have the Robert Cole method, which is the sure, whatever you said is fine with me, just as long as you don't say it to anybody else.
See, you got the Ed method wrong. Like, so it's the inception approach, which is ask a series of questions that get them to focus on what was good in their own mind and leave them with that.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Because even the worst trick had a high point.
Yeah.
All in how you ask.
Send them their flip-to photo is what he's saying. But if you want to check out the podcast, it's fueltravel.com/podcast, or just search for Fuel Hotel Marketing on any podcast catcher.
And your tool for working with those reviews is Fiverr, right? Is that sponsored by Fiverr?
Today's sponsor is Fiverr. Want anything done that isn't exactly straightforward? Contact Fiverr.
The jobs no one else is willing to do or can do legally.
Or you want people to know you're doing, having someone do.
Yes, contact Fiverr. All right, Mr. Robert, if people know about you and what it is that you do,
rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole on social media.
Are you still going to join our show now that you're part, the old Pricewaterhouse and the
JD Powers?
Okay, can I tell you actually one thing? You're talking about messing up. Somebody mentioned not having backups of something. I've been redoing my website, right, and have the staging site also. found a weird thing on FileZilla because I was going to back up the whole staging site and everything was fine. And I had one with the staging site on my, root direct, and they had not been paired or anything. And I hit delete on my computer, and it took out the staging site, the whole directory. It was quite unexpected. Yeah, that was
this week's Rut-Row.
That was last week's Rut-Row.
Yeah, disconnect your backup. Yeah.
And so now I have a much cleaner staging site without much of that other stuff that I'm putting back together. Yeah.
Baby and bathwater. Get rid of them both. Yep, baby and bathwater.
That was fun.
Mr. Ed, sir, if you want to know more about Flip 2 and what it is that you are passionate about, obviously football, college football.
Well, if you want to see me troll people about college football, which will die down now for a while because there's not much to do. Season's over. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to see college football trolling. Otherwise, if you want to see my professional side of things, it's LinkedIn and it's Edward StOnge. And then about Flip 2, flip.to, and you can learn everything about what we do. And Lauren, if you want to find out how to type a really long URL, what URL should it be?
Or how to optimize your Fiverr platform.
Or optimize Fiverr. I have a lockdown section of my site that's only IP addressable. No, it is at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com.
Or on the dark web.
Dark web, yeah.
IP 198.4. So it's at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. That's for this show and all previous archives. If we do decide to go through the process of changing the name of the show, we will literally create, a clean, just only website for the show based on the name that the URLs. I'll send the URLs to you guys.
I think Lauren, you found the name. HospitalityDarkwebMarketing.com.
Darkweb Marketing and Fiverr.com. I also I'll send you other lists too. I have like hospitalitychannel.tv. I have lots of variations that we've never.
I think it should be Gray Matter. Why have we walked away from Gray Matter?
Well, because I'm just
it's hospitality in it, right?
Yeah, I thought it has to have hospitality because Gray Matter, it's fun, but I mean nobody's going to know what the hell it is.
No one knows what this is anyway.
I'll send over the list. But either way, it'll be a standalone website.
Including us. None of us.
Exactly. Nobody.
Nope. So I'll send over the list. We'll send it out as a survey to the email list that I send everybody a reminder to that we have the show and get everybody's insights as to, one, if the time still works for everyone, if it's optimum, and two, whether or not we change the name, and if so, we'll make a website that will be dedicated just to the show itself so that we don't have to go through a really bad, yet to be updated website called hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, because that is definitely the painter's house. With that, everyone, thank you so much for concluding show number 178, show 179 next week. And until then, bye everyone, until Friday at 11:30 Eastern.
Bye, guys.